This week, we talked to a dad who never got a driver's license and got his cargo bike to take his kids around town. Take a listen.
So first of all, is this your bike? And can you tell me about it?
This is my bike. This is my bike. I'll say in the frame. This is my bike. We call her Polly. When we got the bike, our son said it looked like and now I'm blanking, like a pelican. So like this is like the pelican and the mouth, and you sit in the mouth of the pelican. So we're a big fan of it.
That's awesome. That's super cool. And if someone doesn't know anything about this?
Oh, yeah.
How would you describe this bike to someone?
I call it a cargo bike. In the sense where you have sort of a metal frame and then you have a place where you could put cargo. But this is a Urban Arrow. We got this from JC Lynn, who's in Uptown. We've had it for almost 6 years now. Mm-hmm. And we have 2 children, now an 11-year-old and a 4-year-old. But we were able to put, when the 4-year-old was very, very little, we had a little clip that the car seat could sit in. So we have, he was 6 or 7, and then the baby in the seat as well, which is really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how long have you been biking, and what got you into it?
Golly, I've been biking my entire life. I grew up in small towns in Colorado and Oregon, and biking was sort of the thing that I wanted to do most of the time. I actually don't have a driver's license, and I moved to Chicago primarily because I knew I could cycle year-round and, if needed be, get around in public transportation. So coming from Colorado and Oregon, Chicago is very, very different in the sense where it's all flat, so you're not worrying about hills and other elements. But, you make up for the fact that there's ice and snow and wind and, aggressive car drivers. But I cycle year-round in this with our kids, and it works really well for us.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And do you still, because that surprises me coming from a dad, do you still not have a driver's license?
Still don't have a driver's license.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So let's just move to that for a second, because I think that's something that people often can't conceptualize.
Yeah.
Is even just living in Chicago without a car, without the ability to use a car. Have you found that challenging? Or, if someone was like, I could never live without my car, can you kind of paint a picture of what that might look like for you?
I think it's totally doable. You just start to change the way in which you see the world. It makes your world, I think, pleasantly smaller, right? Instead of being like, oh, I could drive my car someplace and then go to here and go to here, my day becomes, all right, how can I sort of stack tasks that is going to be bikeable, walkable, busable that way? It was interesting having one child and not having a driver's license, because it became a situation of all right, well, my partner has a car and we can drive around, but she won't always be available. So I need to make sure that I can sort of situate my life where doctor's appointments, jobs, schools, grocery stores, anything that's important to me and necessary to our life are going to be accessible, but also still have some of the convenience of living in the city. Mm-hmm. And that's why we especially like living in Humboldt Park, because you can still have all of the necessities, the grocery stores, the restaurants, the schools that are all within an area, but also still have the ability to say, great, well, if I want to go someplace, I can either take the train, I can take the bus, I can take the metro, and go from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And
it's totally possible. I know people are like, no, I could never do it. And it's like, for someone who's lived their entire life that way, and my happiness is not impacted. If I want to go and do something, it then becomes intentional as opposed to impulsive that way. I'm not like, oh, I can't just be like, I'm going to go to Target or I'm going to go do something else like that. I'm like, all right, well, if I have to go buy something or I have to go do something, it has to be intentional, because I have to have the time to get there, either by biking or taking public transport.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what do you use your bike for? You talked about it a little bit with transporting kids, but I imagine a lot.
Kids are the primary way of getting in and around town. But again, the great part about living in Chicago is you're really never more than 15, 20 minutes away from anything you need to, especially on a bike. So if I'm like, great, I got to go to the grocery store. I want to go to the movie theater. I feel like I'm going to go to a coffee shop. I want to go to a library. I'm just biking to do everything in my life, which is really nice. And another positive thing is having North Avenue and then also having the 606. So if it's a particularly busy morning, I can easily take the bike and get up on the 606, and that's a bike and walk or highway for me to get to where I need to go. But also it's easy to get on North, and the nice thing about a bike like this is you're big enough and bright enough where cars see you in a way that they don't normally see a cyclist that's just on a normal sort of bike. The fact that I'm higher up, I usually wear like a sort of almost like it's like a hunter orange jacket. So I'm definitely visible. And then we have a Bluetooth speaker that's usually blasting. Right now it's a lot of like Minecraft music or Sonic music. So we're very seen on the road, even in the mornings and the afternoons when we're coming home from school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what do you like about biking Chicago? What makes it special to you?
There's so many times, especially in the wintertime when it's cold and it's windy, that I think in a car or even on a bus, you're sort of separate from it. There's something really nice about going through the elements. I'm not like taking my kids out in like the polar vortex times, like on those days where it's like below freezing, we're getting on a bus. But on the days where it's like 30 degrees, it's a little bit of windy, there's maybe some slush, it's something's really nice to just be able to ride, to get through traffic, to go through neighborhoods, to feel like, oh, I can get to my schools in less than 10 minutes that would usually take me longer if I was in a car. There's also something really special about seeing other cyclists and pointing to them and like getting a wave. There are more and more of these urban arrows that are sort of popping up in Chicago, and you sort of like give that sort of very typical sort of nod of like, okay, this is someone who sees a similar lifestyle and they like it. But a really special thing is when cars stop and say, what is that? There are so many people who stop us, either like we'll be waiting at a red light and they will roll their window down. They're like, that's an amazing bike, or what's that like? And they assume it's a full electric, and it's like, no, you have to pedal still. I'm still, especially when I have, 150 pounds worth of kids in the bike, I'm definitely getting a good workout. And so it's really cool to see that there are other people on the road, even if they're not cyclists, who see the appeal and sort of enjoy that sort of sensation of being present on the road and transporting either myself or my kids, and just feeling the presence of Chicago as a city while we're on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool. And what do you dislike about biking Chicago? Especially as a family, are there things you feel like could be better?
I mean, yeah, it's a meditative exercise in not letting frustrations out. Like, in a perfect world, I would love for everyone to have the same respect for cyclists that we do for cars or buses or anything else. But there certainly are like times when I'm riding in a designated bike lane and you can tell people are on their phone, on their car. They're just not being self-aware of the impact they might be having. Lots of times where it's like there's a bus who's in the bike lane, or there are people who are in the bike lane, or people who are not looking. And it's easy for me to take it personally. It's easy for me to be like, these people don't know how important I am. But it's like, they're doing their own thing. They're being people, and they're allowed to sort of be on the road. And it's interesting. I feel like we're starting to see a change in that, right? As bike lanes become more and more prevalent, as there are more cyclists who are willing to ride in Chicago. I'm seeing more and more drivers be more present. But I just wish that there was more sympathy at some times for cyclists that way.
Yeah.
Sympathy, I guess, is the right word for it.
Yeah. No, that absolutely makes sense.
You want to wait?
No, I'm just.
Oh, yeah, it's a big cat.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the big cat.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I'm distracted. I'll have to pick my next question here.
That's all good.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of there's maybe one or two more here. Yeah, what advice would you give to someone who might be curious about starting to bike in Chicago, but is kind of like afraid to start or nervous, especially maybe like a family? What would you suggest to someone who's like, I want to get this started, but like it's kind of scary out there.
Yeah, I think slowly building your confidence on the road is important, right? Chicago, it's like running with the bulls, right? There are lots and lots of cars on the road, and they're interested in doing their thing. So I noticed that there are a lot of cyclists who don't follow the rules of the road and are hyper aggressive, right? Are like yelling at cars and are like blasting through lights, and they're sort of like acting in a sense of anarchy. And I don't think that's the way to feel you're going to be safe, especially if you have kids. To me, I try to act with as much grace and confidence as I can on the road, understanding that cars are going to focus on their thing and I need to take care of myself. So it's about feeling comfortable with the route you're taking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, am I going someplace I've never been? I need to really make sure I know where I'm going so I'm not on my phone and also riding with kids in a bike.
Mm-hmm.
I need to really make sure I'm following the rules, because there are so many times where it's like, it would be easy for me to go the opposite way on a one-way.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm doing that and there are if there are drivers who are not used to a cyclist on the road, they might pull out, they might open their door, and it's putting me and it's putting my kids in danger. So I just have to take that responsibility to say, I'm the one who's keeping myself and my family safe.
Mm-hmm.
I need to ensure that I'm taking all the different steps to do that. So I kind of just act like I'm a car, and just try to have that sort of sense of, okay, take up space. Don't be afraid to be on the road. And if I need to get off the road, do it in a way that's going to be safe for myself and for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Maybe one last question here. What do you think the city could do to make that experience more pleasant for you or for other families in particular?
Great question. I feel like the city's already starting to do it. I think if you look at roads that have been particularly dangerous, like Milwaukee, for example, where there has been a lot of cyclist deaths, having these very designated, protected lanes for cyclists, I think is really, really important. I know for drivers, having one lane is really inconvenient, but having that sort of cement area where people can't park, where you have a bike lane which is really, really protected, I think that's great. It's a good step. I know in some cities, like in Minneapolis and in Portland, there are almost designated routes where it's like, okay, cyclists, you can get on this side street and you can ride. You're not going to hit a stop sign. You're not going to hit a stoplight. And it allows for cyclists to say, great, we're going to almost go to this like cyclist bound artery, which is going to allow for cyclists to ride that way. Cars understand cyclists are going to be permanently in this sort of street, so they can sort of stay away from that. And it sort of allows for cars that are not usually aware of cyclists, like truck drivers or delivery vans or other sort of big industry level vehicles. They're not going to have to be worried about, oh, if I park in a bike lane so I can unload my stuff. They're not going to be pushing cyclists into traffic that way. I think there should also be, in some ways, like a tax incentive for citizens who ride bikes, right? Like, I feel like if there was a way where you could write off either your mileage or saying, great, I'm going to buy a bike, and that's going to be a primary way of getting around the city, that the city could say, great, we're going to give you a tax incentive to do that. So it's one less car on the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, those are all of the questions I have. Is there anything else you want to say about your biking experience or you want to tell the people?
Cycling in Chicago is great. The city is a beautiful city to cycle in. You can get anywhere you need to go. And I feel like I get to know the neighborhoods that I cycle in every single year just by being able to be present on my bike. You get to see people, you get to wave, you get to listen to the sounds of the city. And it just helps me feel that much more connected and that much more invested in the city.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Of course, anytime.
Thanks for watching that interview. Subscribe to see more conversations with Chicagoans biking around their city, dropping every other week.